Ava Torres squints against the early morning fog rolling over the city. As an environmental engineer, she's used to bad air quality warnings. In her line of work, it's common for smog to hang low and warnings to flash about sulfur dioxide or particulate matter. But today, there's something different. A sharp, stinging bitterness that settles deep in her lungs even as she takes shallow breaths. She tightens her scarf around her nose, but the fabric does nothing. Instinctively, she fumbles for her portable air quality monitor. It's a standard device she uses in the field, but today, the numbers spike in a way she's never seen. Hazardously high. Whatever's in the air isn't on the usual spectrum. It's thick, acrid, and burns as she inhales. Ava races home, heart pounding. Her 6-year-old daughter, Lily, is still asleep, bundled under the blankets. Without hesitation, she packs Lily's small bag, stuffs in a mask, and grabs an emergency contact list she'd prepared months ago, mostly as a precaution. She phones her sister, arranging for Lily to leave the city that afternoon. "It's just a precaution," Ava tells Lily, but her own words feel hollow. She feels the chill of panic in her bones, though she keeps it hidden behind a steady tone. In the hours that follow, Ava tries to focus. Her job has trained her to think scientifically, to examine problems in layers and isolate threats. But the rapid escalation in toxicity and the lack of any official response leaves her feeling helpless. She begins writing down observations in her field journal, logging the smell, the density, the symptoms. She's methodical, but beneath the controlled notes, worry builds, knowing that her city may never be the same. Finally, as night falls and her daughter is safely away, Ava records her first message to Lily, explaining why she had to send her away and her hope that Lily will come back to a world where the air is safe again. The city streets are transformed into a grim, dystopian landscape. Everyone wears masks now, some cobbled together, others high-end respirators. Yet each face is a mixture of fear and resilience. Ava, in a standard mask, dodges a growing number of checkpoints as the government tries to control movement. She reflects on the city's eerie silence, broken only by the hum of drones monitoring compliance. Ava meets other engineers who share her struggle. They gather in a dimly lit basement, converted into a makeshift lab, where they work on developing personal air filters and testing out plants that might improve indoor air quality. Together, they analyze data, share findings, and try to stay hopeful despite limited resources. On her way home, Ava encounters people lining up for dwindling supplies. Tensions flare, arguments break out, and authorities try to manage the restless crowd. Ava hurries past, feeling a pang of guilt and helplessness as people shove one another for air filters. She notes everything in her journal, recording the cracks forming in the social order. Back at her apartment, Ava records another message for Lily. She describes the changes she's seeing, the way people are growing colder, desperate, almost unrecognizable. She reassures Lily that she's safe and that she's part of something bigger with her fellow engineers who are working to find solutions. It's a message as much for herself as it is for her daughter. Ava starts her journey at the edge of the city's safety zone. She adjusts her mask tightly, eyeing the dense smog as she reviews her map, which shows areas known for discarded equipment. Around her, only a few other brave scavengers venture out, each disappearing into the grey haze as quickly as they arrive. In an old neighborhood, Ava finds a playground swallowed by smog, swings creaking in the wind. She pauses, touching the chain of a swing, her mind flashing back to memories of her daughter. She records the sight in her journal as a grim reminder of the life Lily might never return to. Ava enters an abandoned warehouse where shelves are stocked with industrial masks and filters. relics from an earlier time when safety protocols were thought temporary. She fills her bag quickly, carefully selecting high-quality filters and one advanced mask she hopes might offer better protection. In a small electronics shop, Ava finds stacks of pamphlets and posters with "Save the Air" slogans, crumpled and covered in dust. She snaps a picture with her phone, feeling the weight of humanity's missed warnings, the irony now bitter as she realizes how preventable the catastrophe could have been. As Ava heads home, her bag heavier with supplies, the city's smog seems thicker, heavier, almost alive. She struggles to breathe, taking shorter, shallower breaths as she pushes through the haze. Her only comfort, the extra filters and masks she's found. She returns to her apartment, exhausted, her resolve strengthened to keep going for Lily's sake. Ava observes her neighbors stockpiling and competing for supplies. Previously friendly faces now hide behind masks and suspicious glances. The community feels fractured, with people moving quickly and avoiding eye contact, each wrapped in their own silent battle for survival. Ava visits an abandoned government building, where she finds a lobby plastered with old protest posters and warnings about air quality. Each flyer is faded, their messages ignored or forgotten. She snaps a picture with her phone, feeling a bitter irony as she realizes these were once cries for help, now artifacts of indifference. On another scavenging trip, Ava finds stacks of newspapers in a deserted store. Headlines from years past declare global warming crisis, air quality at critical levels, and scientists urge action. She quietly reflects on the negligence that brought them to this point, recording her thoughts for her daughter. Ava reconnects with a few other engineers in the basement lab. They discuss the discoveries they've made, the warnings that could have been heeded, and exchange ideas for new ways to filter the ever-thickening air. The scene ends with Ava silently reading a final ironic banner. Hope for change, a slogan from an old campaign. That night, Ava records another message for Lily. She speaks with a new determination, realizing that her survival isn't just for herself, but to pass on her knowledge and experiences to the next generation. She leaves a hopeful note, promising to do everything she can to ensure her daughter returns to a safer world. In a crowded supply center, Ava watches in horror as a fight breaks out over the last batch of air filters. People grab whatever they can, pushing each other, yelling, and guards struggle to maintain control. Ava manages to slip out with a small supply, shaken by the violent chaos around her. Struggling with heavy bags filled with water and basic rations, Ava walks through dark, deserted streets. The buildings around her are covered in graffiti calling out for justice and survival. She stays alert, her pace quickening as she senses figures watching her from the shadows. Back in the basement lab, tempers flare among the engineers as some argue for hoarding supplies rather than sharing. Ava steps in, voicing her commitment to helping each other survive, but she notices fear and mistrust slowly taking hold. This is no longer the close-knit community it once was. Ava stumbles upon a makeshift black market in an alley where masks, filters, and essential items are sold at exorbitant prices. She exchanges part of her own stash for a rare, high-quality filter. She returns home, questioning if she made the right decision, but knowing she may need it to survive. That evening, Ava records a message to Lily, confessing her growing doubts and the fear gripping her. She describes the city's descent, but reassures Lily that she's holding on, hoping to make the world safer for her return. Her voice wavers, yet there is resolve in her words. In her dimly lit apartment, Ava watches in horror as her main air filter dies. The once reliable hum falls silent, and she's left with only a backup filter that won't last long. She realizes this is the beginning of the end, unless she can find a solution. Ava heads into the most polluted parts of the city, areas nearly abandoned due to toxicity. She moves cautiously through the dense smog, spotting eerie remnants of life: abandoned bikes, empty strollers, masks scattered on the ground. Her breathing grows labored, each step a battle. Ava finds the engineers she worked with, meeting in a nearly empty basement lab. They share what little supplies they've managed to gather, but morale is low. Ava suggests a final push, one last effort to build a sustainable filtration device with their combined resources. On the way home, Ava's backup filter begins to fail. She pulls her scarf tighter around her face, taking shallow breaths. The city is silent, its usual hum swallowed by the toxic air. She clutches her journal, her thoughts consumed by her daughter and the world she hopes to leave behind. That night, Ava records what may be her final message to Lily, detailing her journey and what she's learned. Despite everything, she maintains a sense of hope, urging Lily to stay strong, promising that her love will carry on even if she does not. It's a message of endurance, a goodbye, and a promise all in one. Ava steps outside to a city that's eerily quiet. Most people have retreated indoors, and the streets are empty. The smog is dense, and every step is a challenge as her breaths grow shallower. The oppressive silence underscores the dire situation. Ava and the few surviving engineers gather in a crowded basement filled with cobbled-together filtration devices. Despite their fatigue, they're unified in their last attempt to build a larger filter system, something that could purify air pockets throughout the city. The air is thick, but their determination is palpable. Tensions run high as the group tests the final system. When the initial test fails, a brief moment of despair ripples through the group. But Ava insists they keep trying, rallying everyone to press on. Their bond strengthens as they face the looming failure together. With little energy left, Ava walks through her smog-laden city one last time, barely managing each breath. She takes in the world around her, the quiet ruins, and the few remaining figures, each struggling to endure. It's a farewell to the world she once knew. Back in her apartment, Ava records a final, heartfelt message to her daughter, reflecting on her journey, the resilience she found, and the hope she has that Lily's world will be better. Her voice falters, but she finishes with a message of love and encouragement, leaving her legacy of hope.